What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Basem Hanna Podcast. Today, I am very fortunate to have a longtime friend and fellow successful entrepreneur, Fady Kamel, join me. Fady, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
So to get started, maybe I will have you introduce yourself to the audience, tell them a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get right into it.
For sure. That sounds good. So yeah, like Basem said, I'm Fady Kamel. I'm an insurance broker, currently with Hub International. I'm sure we'll get into that a little more, but I specialize in cannabis insurance. So we insure LPs, retailers, consultants, you name it. And it's interesting that I'm here because Basem helped me get into the cannabis insurance space, and I'm sure we'll dive into that. But yeah, I've been in insurance for 12 years or so. The last 6 of them specifically in cannabis and commercial. So we insure, any type of commercial business. I think the fun part for me obviously is cannabis. That's the one that I enjoy and kind of got me to keep pushing in that field and in insurance.
Right? Yeah, that's awesome. You said I'm the one who got you into cannabis insurance. I would say it's the other way around. Without you, I wouldn't have had an LP because no one insured cannabis people back then, and you took a massive flyer on me. So I appreciate that. Fedy is like a big part of it. Like, the little things behind the scenes that you need to do to make a business successful. Like without getting insurance, you can't operate a business. And at the time when we were starting our cannabis business, no one insured cannabis. Cannabis insurance didn't exist. And I think I can't say this for sure, but I would argue that you were the first, if not one of the first brokers to insure cannabis clients in Canada.
Yeah, definitely. There was probably a handful of them, so I was one of the handful.
Yeah.
There was something in place for medical before that.
Sure.
But again, how many medical LPs were there when you guys came out, right? Like a handful, right? Like if that. So I was part of that first wave, which was exciting, and one of the reasons why it allowed me again to kind of grow with you guys. So I think the cool part was watching a company like yours from the beginning, literally from like a dirt floor, build up, and like all the needs that different types of insurance and stuff that you guys needed, we had to navigate that together, and that really helped me with any other company that was starting. It's like, I've already done that with a much larger organization.
For sure. Okay, let's rewind it back to the very beginning. So because I have such a long history with you, I want to take it back to like high school. Like when I know, just for context, Fady and I grew up in the same church, and we've known each other since I can't remember, maybe like when we were 5 or 6 years old, basically when I moved to Canada. And we've watched each other grow. When we were younger, what was your sport of choice?
Basketball, for sure.
Yeah. Don't let his bald head and appearance fool you. Fedy was like a ball star when we were young.
Once upon a time, yeah.
Do you think you still got those handles?
The handles and the shot is still there. That's like,
really?
Yeah, my son's practice, they pick a parent to shoot at the end of practice.
Yeah.
Like shoot free throws. I've only missed one so far. So
really?
We're on a roll. So yeah.
Dude, I remember when we were younger, like your handles were on like.
Yeah, I was literally in the gym, like playing basketball 4 or 5 days a week, probably for like a 10-year stretch. Like that's all I did for a long time. Like, and my son's doing that now, so it's fun to watch.
And then the Egyptian genetics kick in, and you're like, why am I not a foot taller?
Yeah. Exactly. That doesn't help, man. The food we eat is not made for athletes, right? And the way we eat, like literally growing up, your parents made sure you stuffed yourself. Like it wasn't, okay, you're good, like leave. No. Stuff yourself and then you can leave.
Yeah, like roll yourself off the table. Yeah.
And that's not really the best way to watch your health and be an athlete, right?
Oh my God. Okay. I'll ask you some like fun questions just to like warm us up here.
Cool.
Tell everybody a hidden talent that you have, not basketball, that people wouldn't expect you to have.
Interesting. I like that one. That's a good one. So away from basketball, I was gonna say coach you, but that's basketball.
Yeah,
So,
that's okay. That counts. But give us a good one.
yeah. How this one's kind of cheesy, but I can whistle like super loud.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one. I like to barbecue. I don't know if people would see that, but like I enjoy barbecuing. And like I only use charcoal, so it's a little bit more challenging, but it's a lot funner. Like,
Okay.
um,
So you're good on the grill?
yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
Okay, well that's good. And you gotta like start fires and do the thing. So
Yes.
my follow-up question is, if we put you in the wilderness for a week, could you survive?
Yeah, that's no problem.
R-
Oh yeah,
Really?
yeah, that's no problem. A little bit of weed and I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
By wilderness, I mean my backyard.
Oh yeah, your backyard. That's no problem at all. But yeah, I'm very resourceful, man. Like I'm the kind of guy that's gonna find a way,
Yeah.
not necessarily look up a way. Like I'm just gonna figure it out.
Yeah. Fake until you make it.
What? Yeah, something like that, right? Like
Yeah.
keep going until you find it, right? Like, so yeah, I'll find a way to survive. Like that's not a problem. A week is not a long time.
No, really?
Might be a nice little break from the real world.
Dude, I'd be dead in like 48 hours. I'd be hungry and
Where's
dead.
my phone?
Yeah.
Something
Okay, but from what kind of student were you in high school?
High school.
Be honest.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was not a good student. Like I didn't study very much. We had a group of probably like 10 or 12 of us who thought we were something we weren't as kids. Like
Yeah.
we thought we were
Gangsters.
yeah, you could say that. Like but it was like a joke. Like it wasn't real. The problem is I think in our last or second last year of high school, we met another group of people who had just come to our school.
Right.
And they were a little more gangster than we thought we were.
Yeah.
So now we're like, okay, we got gangsters now. Like, let's go now. So that just made things worse.
Right.
But yeah, no, I didn't study very hard in school. I enjoyed it. I was on like every sports team. I was cool with everybody, like from the people that, you wouldn't talk to or normally you wouldn't talk to. Like I was cool with them. I was cool with everybody. So no, high school was awesome. In my last year, I went back like first day of school. And they basically said, I was looking for my name on all of like the attendance lists and my name wasn't there. So I went to the office and they're like, yeah, I don't think we want you back this year. I'm like, what? Like it's the first day of school. I'm ready to study. And like, what if I'm a changed man? Like, you don't know that what happened this summer, right? And basically they picked two of us out of that group that were really close to finishing.
Man.
And they found a spot for us at Arendelle. So I was at John Fraser and they found a spot for us at Arendelle. So at first it was like, man, you're kicking me out. But really, I guess they picked the two people that had the best chance of surviving on their own or away from here. So I went to Arendelle, a different school for my last year, which was good. Again, I kind of got away from that and got to experience something a little bit different.
Right.
So that was fun. I played basketball there too. They had a pretty good basketball team. We made a nice run. So yeah, high school was great, man. I enjoyed it a lot.
So what happens after high school?
So because I didn't study hard enough, boys and girls, I ended up going to college. I always
Not that there's anything wrong with college.
Not at all.
Absolutely.
Not at all. Honestly, I learned a ton. Like I went to Humber and I always knew I wanted to go to university after, but at Humber, like Basem was saying, the amount I learned was way more than I would have imagined. And it was like real world stuff. So it was great. I did 2 diplomas there and I ended up going to university after. I always wanted to go away for school. Want to kind of be on my own and learn how to live on my own.
Yeah.
So there was a joint program that Humber had with the school in Michigan, Northwood. It was a business school. So I ended up going out there for 2 years, I believe, to finish my degree. And for me, that was awesome, man. Like the amount I learned living by myself.
Oh.
Up until then, my mom was doing my laundry. So I had to do all that stuff on my own. So just, growing as a man, as a person.
Yeah.
That was huge for me.
Dude, my dad, so I had a very similar story, but most Egyptian parents are like, don't go away for school, like stay at home and I'll buy you a car.
Yeah. They don't tell you it's a 89 Corolla.
Yeah, it's actually my old car.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a new car. Yeah.
I'm buying me one. It's like, no, it's already here.
You've been driving it for so I went to Ryerson for my first 2 years. And then I transferred into Western. And my parents and like even the priests in our church were like, don't go away from school. Like F that noise. I'm
Yeah.
going away. I need to get out of here.
That's exactly what I'm
Yeah. You say no?
Yeah.
Fine, yes. And the minute I got there, I like my dad was like, okay, you're gonna do this, like full independence.
Yeah.
So
Just dropped you off
Yeah.
and turned around.
but actually, it was like that. He dropped me off, and I had to find a place on my own. And I was like, so I ended up living like the worst. Like for the first 6 months, I was like, it was like garbage. I had to go. I'd be going there. I'm like, where am I going to sleep? I have to buy a mattress, and then like the weekends of all my clean laundry, and I'm like,
Now what?
I need to do laundry. I got to feed myself. Like the learning, the non-educational learning that ended up happening, it like grows you up. You end up becoming a grown-up, a real man or a real woman, depending like through that process. So
For sure. And I love how your dad dropped you off. Like a lot of parents will be like, okay, come and they'll guide you. But your dad was like, all right, you want to do it? Go do it.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the best way to learn. And that's one thing I've realized, obviously, raising my son is like, you want to protect them and you want to guide them and be kind of like a helicopter dad, they call it. And like, that's naturally how I am. But I quickly realized like this is not good for him, right? Like he's got to do it on his own. He's got to learn on his own. So that's really cool that he just said, all right, go.
Yeah. He's like, I'm in for the rest of today.
It's like, ask him what you want now.
Yeah, your mom and my mom didn't even come. I don't think in my time at Western, my mom ever showed up.
Ever even,
No, I was just like, wow.
And then I'm sure as soon as he
Oh,
left.
she came for graduation.
Yeah. I'm sure as soon as he left, you were like, or maybe the next day, you were like,
Very
not a
scared.
second, right? Like, this is not but you quickly had to turn it on, right? Like,
Very scared.
yeah.
There's 2 times in my life that happened, like when I went to Western and then I did an exchange in Europe and I didn't plan properly then. And similar situation, except I landed on a Sunday, and in Belgium where I went, the world is shut down on Sundays. Like there's nothing, like the cabs don't even work.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, I basically slept in the airport for
until you figured it out.
Yeah, like homeless. Okay, so you go to Northwood, and you come back, and what's happening?
So I came back, I want to say that was around 2009 or something like that. Got a job at TD. Sorry, I got a job at Bell. I was at Bell Mobility, like in the call center. And I saw these job postings for TD. It was TD Insurance, again, in their call center. The cool part was the main thing they were looking for was call center experience.
Mm-hmm.
The insurance stuff they were going to teach.
Correct.
So for me, I'm like, great, I'm in a call center, let's apply. And I got into there, which was awesome. So I was working in the call center, customer service for home and auto insurance for TD. And I honestly enjoyed that because you're speaking to the client directly, right? Like, and you're really understanding what they like, what they don't like, what bothers them, all of these things that you never would if you were in another position in the insurance company, like kind of behind the scenes.
Right.
So I learned a ton just about customers and who they were. Eventually, I was like, yeah, the call center is not really my favorite place to be. I hooked up with a recruiter to try to get, somewhere else in the insurance industry to kind of explore what else is out there.
Right.
Ended up landing a job at a brokerage. And that's where I met kind of my mentor, really young dude. He started in the brokerage as a sales guy, moved his way up, eventually owned the place. And now he's been running it for many years, very successfully. Just to throw it in, Neil at the Shepherd Group, shout out to Neil, no high school education, just a hustler, just a grinder. And I think when I saw that, it really opened up my eyes to one, what insurance can be, like the opportunities in insurance. And two is if you grind, like if you wake up and work towards something and stay consistent with it, the possibilities are endless. So, he not only showed me insurance, but he showed me just business and entrepreneurship and what you have to do to be successful out here.
Yeah, like he grew you up, right?
Sure.
And everybody needs a mentor. Like I don't care if you have higher education or if you basically work your way up from entry level positions. Like there's in everybody's story, it's that parental figure, like your business parent that looks out for you, right? Like you need that to grow.
100%. Neil has a mentor today.
Mm-hmm.
He has a business coach that guides him today. And that's a successful entrepreneur already, right?
Entrepreneurship and just being successful in general is not a solo mission. It never is. You need to find the people, like your team or your group that helps you elevate. But you also have to be able to give that back.
For
Right?
sure.
Like you can't just take and not give.
For sure. No, 100%. And I think, with us, when we first kind of started, I felt that with you. It was like, hey, Fady, once we got started rolling, it was like, man, you got an opportunity here. You take it and run, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll help you, but you got to take it and run. You know what I mean? So like, for sure, for sure. And without you showing me that, or even like, giving me that confidence or showing me that opportunity, I may not, right? So yeah, I think it's a mix of both, right? Like you need somebody to mentor you and show you the ropes, but you also have to have that little bit of a drive and a push to go get it, right? Like no one's gonna give it to you.
No. And if you're expecting that, like, just don't bother. Okay, so you've found your mentor. You're now in a better spot. Like, what's next? What happens next?
Yeah, I think through working now at a brokerage, we were dealing with different insurance companies, and you're seeing kind of the other side. Whereas TD, you were the insurance company, so you weren't dealing with anybody else. Where at the broker world, you're now dealing with other companies, other underwriters, and you're understanding a little bit more of how the industry goes.
Right.
So I saw an opportunity at Aviva as to be an underwriter. And basically now I'm not selling insurance anymore. I'm on the company side, basically looking through those quotes that come in or the submissions that come in and pricing them, determining if we even want to insure them or not. So for me, that was a really good opportunity as opposed to being in the brokerage. And it was almost like the next level or step towards that career, kind of continuing to push that career. So I got a job with Aviva, was there for a couple of years. It was in a call center, which again, isn't the best place for me. I don't enjoy being in a call center, but it was a really good job. You were still an underwriter, and now you're dealing with brokers. So when I was a broker, I was calling into that call center to get advice or to get help on certain things. Now I was on the other side. So it really helped me understand both sides and kind of what everyone is going through, which was awesome. Eventually, through this whole thing, I had a goal after seeing kind of the brokerage and my mentor to build up a book of business and eventually sell it. And that was something that, coworkers at Aviva would tell you, friends of mine would tell you, like literally 10 or 12 years ago, I remember telling one of my friends that I'm going to build up a book of business and eventually sell it. So I always kind of had that in the back of my mind that I would end up, going back to the broker world when the time was right.
And then that moment happens.
Yeah. So that was 2015, I believe. I felt like it was time. I had left Aviva for one or two other kind of commercial underwriting jobs. Really cool story I'll tell you at Aviva. I think you know me very well in terms of like faith and how much we believe things are kind of, meant to be. And if you work hard enough and you're honest enough, those things will automatically work themselves out. Like, 100%. So I was trying to get a job. I was in Aviva personal lines underwriting, and I was trying to get a job into their commercial side so I could start to learn commercial. And I was in this call center, Basem, and I was literally showing up every day in a suit. Like my manager was wearing khakis and running shoes.
Right.
And I was in a full suit, like every day. And the reason that was, again, going back to Neil, he had always told me, like, dress for the job that you want, not the job that you're at now. So I was in there, like, working towards more. I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to continue to push and kind of progress. Got an interview for a commercial job in Scarborough. At the time, the Aviva office was in Scarborough. Got an interview. I didn't get it. And I was like, what? This doesn't make sense, right? Like, I'm in here in a suit every day. I'm grinding. Everybody knows that that's what I want.
Yeah.
Even managers spoke to other managers, and I didn't get the job. And, I was a little disappointed, but eventually, about 2 months later or something like that, there was an opportunity that opened up for a commercial job in Mississauga. And at the time, I had lived in Mississauga. I applied for the job. It was a much lower commercial job. So, for example, I was a senior personal lines underwriter. That was an underwriting assistant for commercial.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the title is like, well, you're going down to an assistant. The cool part was, number one, I got to be in a larger commercial office.
Right.
So I was learning a lot more than I would have if I was in Scarborough. Mm-hmm. Number two, I didn't have to commute. Like I was literally in my house before 4:30. Right? Like where I was commuting from Scarborough every day.
Back when people had to go to office.
Yeah. If you guys remember those days, yeah. So yeah, I just got a way better opportunity for something that, I had to be a little more patient towards. And from that day, I told myself, like, I will never question God's plans for me. Like, sure, you can be upset and you can be disappointed, but don't ever question, don't ever ask why, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not in your hands, the why, right? So, so that was just a little neat story that helped me, and we'll get to this point, but in today's journey, helped me really say, you know what, man, you don't get to decide how this goes or ends.
Yeah.
You work towards it, you plan it, and you wish for it and pray for it. But at the end of the day, that's in someone else's hands, right?
My mom, who you know well, obviously, she like ingrained this in me when I was younger. It's like when I used to ask why or that's not fair and like things wouldn't go my way, she's like, do your best, leave the rest up to God. And then if I would complain, she'd be like, did you do your best? And I'd be like, yes, no, you have to be honest with yourself about that answer. Yeah. And it's like the things that God keeps away from you, even though you might think you want them, versus the things that he gives you that you never knew you needed, like that's higher power.
For sure.
Right? And that's back to like faith,
For
right?
sure.
Like
For sure.
faith is big.
Yeah, and I think, that's really important for us, man, the way we grew up, the way we were raised. And till today, when I look at where we are in terms of our faith and our culture, like we're very lucky to have something that continues to keep us together. Like I like to call it the glue.
Yeah.
So like, on a team, you're the glue guy, you're keeping everything together. Like,
For sure.
So we're lucky to have that community, to have something where our kids can continue to grow up. And yeah, it's really cool, man. Like on Sundays, I look around and I see us and all our friends that we grew up with their children.
It's crazy.
And I'm like, look, like, thank God not many of us have gone astray or got lost because we have something to kind of keep us or hold us together. So yeah, we're very lucky to have that. And I think it's on us. And when I say us, I mean me and you.
Yes.
Totally. To continue that and keep that going. Because if you notice, for example, at like, your family parties and family events, if you go back 15 years, you guys were the little kids running around.
Yeah.
You go back 5 or 10 years, there was a couple other little kids and you guys were a little older. Now you're in high school, so you're not the little kids.
Yeah.
You go back now, and now you have, your children.
My kid. Our
Right?
kids are the shit.
Right? They're the little shits running
Yeah.
around. And now you have the elderly who are like really elderly.
Yeah.
So when you see that cycle, you realize that like eventually we're going to be that elderly. And someone else is going to have to kind of take over and play that role. So I kind of see that in the church the same way. Like we're moving into that role of, if we don't do this, no one else is going to. Like it's now on us.
Not like definitely in church, but just in broader life. Like when I was 20, I thought I wanted to change the world, but the world wouldn't listen. Right? Like I'm too young, I'm too inexperienced. Right? When I was 30, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get the experience, but I know enough to know that it's not my time yet. Yeah, right? Now I'm in my late 30s, we're starting to push 40s. I'm just like, oh, like the world is looking at us to do whatever it is that we expect, or the things that we're like, I wish when I was in power, when I have this, I'm gonna change this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna be this kind of person. It's like, okay, well, like now is the time for us. Like it is our responsibility to be the leaders in our specific communities, whether it's a church or whatever religion.
Even family.
Yeah, and in our families, it's like it's your house that probably has the family gatherings now. Sure. And in your work life, you're the leader, right? Like so. But actually, that's a good transition. But let's talk about you starting the business. So we now understand like the road you've taken to get to where you were. And it's a pretty amazing road, because like, not for nothing, but like everybody makes bad decisions at points in their life, myself included. I wasn't the best kid in high school, and I paid for it in trying to get into the universities I wanted to get into. Sure. Very similar story. Probably when we were friends when we were younger. Yeah.
That's how we got along so well.
Now you get to the point, and so tell me about like, okay, I'm like starting the business, and then what happened, because I want to get to the exit.
For sure. So again, I had this goal the entire time of eventually building up a book of business. So from underwriting, I was picking a brokerage that I could go to. I could be a sales guy. I could build up a book, and I would have ownership of it. Obviously, you could go anywhere and be a sales guy and get paid. That's easy.
Yeah.
But I wanted somewhere to have ownership.
For clarity, when you say be a broker and have a book of business, you mean that you're going to go out and get the clients, and they are technically under your name.
You got it.
Like you own that piece of business.
You got it.
That's
Exactly.
just for everybody to understand what that means.
Yeah, for sure. So as a broker, basically, the contracts and agreements with the insurance companies are with the brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on that brokerage, they have those contracts. You as an individual broker don't have those contracts.
Got it.
So you can't go and just start placing business. You got to do it through the brokerage. So through the brokerage, you start to build up your own client base, and that's your book of business
Right.
that you kind of continue to grow. So I was looking for a home to start growing that. And met many different people. There was many offering, salary and vacation, et cetera, et cetera. And I knew that for me, I would rather go the other route of, straight commission and just start grinding it and building it up for ownership. The return was you'll have ownership. Because I knew where I was headed, right? Like I knew this wasn't just about money. I knew I was going to build a larger book. So I started that with All Risks. So All Risks is a franchise, and they probably have 50 or 60 different offices across Ontario. So I started working under an All Risks branch as a sales guy. Was there for about 3 years, and I think that's when me and you kind of started. I clearly remember I called you on a property you had with Almega, and I was just asking him, like, let's call Basem and see, if he needs insurance. This is what I'm doing now. Let me let him know. And you had sent me a condo, it was like a rented condo or something. And honestly, man, like what I made on that was pennies.
Yeah.
It was like $30.
Yeah.
Literally. And when you called me about cannabis, that's when I was like, man, like that one phone call that I made, where some people might look at it as a waste of time in terms of the work that you did for that business.
Right.
But I knew that making that call might, open up way more opportunities. So that one call I made to you ended up turning into the cannabis insurance of the cannabis world. So I'm glad I made that call for insurance specifically. So.
Bro, probably when you made that call, no one would take my phone calls, because when you were starting your insurance business, I hadn't even probably gotten into cannabis, and no one takes your phone call when you're doing property management for condo units. People are like, they're like, it's $30, bro.
Yeah,
I don't need this headache for $30. But then, as somebody like me, I remember the people that take those phone calls. I remember the guys or the people that helped me when I was not worth helping, or potentially not worth helping, and took a risk on me. And then, of course, like when I have a bigger piece of business where I can write you, a few $1,000s a month in insurance checks. I'm like, why would I give it to anybody?
For sure. Yeah. And that loyalty obviously is huge. And, so yeah, that first call I made to you really, made me realize that any little thing that you do can come back to you tenfold, right? Like,
Totally.
And you can't look at every act that you do like, okay, I need a reward from this, or what am I benefiting from this? It doesn't work like that, right? If you help someone, or if you, work together and achieve something together, it's gonna come back one way or another. And I've honestly carried that throughout everything that I do, man. Like, I have people call me like, I don't know if it's worth it. It's like, hold on a second, right? I'll decide that, first of all.
Right.
And second of all, if it's worth it, not necessarily financially, because most people these days look at it just from a financial perspective. And for me, that's one of the last things I look at, man. And I think that's why I've gone to where I am, because I'm not chasing that. Like there's no number out there where I'm like, yeah, I got to go get that.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of jump into that when we get into the actual brokerage. So where am I at? I'm at All Risks, starting to do cannabis, starting to really build that book of business. So I was there for 4 years, I believe, as a sales guy. And I'm like, okay, I think it's time for me now to start looking at, what's next. I'm a sales guy. I got a book of business. The easiest route for me to open up my own, brokerage or shop was open up a franchise of All Risks. Because I was already in their system, etc. So in March, I believe, of 2020, in and around that time, fresh kind of COVID times, I opened up my own branch in Air Mills in Mississauga. Really cool part is I grew up in Air Mills.
Right.
So for me to come back and open an office literally down the street from where my parents still live, really felt like, it's my home, it's my community. So it was neat just how that works. I actually had a lease in Port Credit really close to signing. And sure enough, they looked up that I was a cannabis insurance broker. And I guess they saw this picture of like a bunch of people sitting in an office smoking weed. And it's like, no, and that's how I'm going to pay your rent, like by selling insurance.
Yeah, we save our weed after.
After 6 o'clock, exactly. And yeah, we lost out on that lease. Like we were really close to signing it and we lost out on it. And again, I think that was another example of that's not for you.
Yeah, it's gone.
And honestly, Basem, like I immediately, when we lost that lease, was like, okay, that's not for me.
Yeah.
And I was already pretty invested. Like we had a down payment ready. But I, again, from those other kind of teachings, I realized that, you know what, there's something else. This one isn't for me. Let's move on, right?
Right.
So open up that branch. And again, just kind of building it. You know, we brought on 1 or 2 sales guys, brought on some employees to really start to build it up. So it was about 3 years. So that was 2020, and now we're in 2023.
Yeah.
So 3 years.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we're getting into the.
Why are you on this podcast?
So yeah, when I was opening up that branch, pretty crazy story. So I'm starting to talk about opening up that branch with the existing owner of the Streetsville branch that I worked at.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at either I'll go open it up on my own or we'll do some kind of partnership and grow it, etc. At that same time, I was interviewing for a job with Hub International, the brokerage that I'm at now, to basically run their cannabis sales division, to be like an executive in their sales division.
Right.
And literally, like I was interviewing and kind of starting to talk about opening my own branch. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do? Like, what if you get the job? Are you going to drop this?
Right.
Or what are you going to kind of do? I was leaning towards my own branch just for the freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But the money on the other side and being an executive was pretty tempting too.
Right.
I didn't get the job, needless to say. I was really close. But I literally saved the guy's business card. Like, I wish I brought it today. I still have it at home. And I told myself, I'm going to call this guy in 10 years. And hopefully they'll buy it off me. Like they don't want me now, no problem.
Yeah.
I'll keep building it up.
Pay for it.
Yeah. When price goes up.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did, man. It wasn't 10 years later. It was only 3 years later. But I called them up, and that same week that I called them, I had run into somebody else from their company, and they had a conversation about me joining them as well to get on board with them. So those talks started in May of last year, May of 2022, is when we first sat down. We had kind of, went back and forth, decided on everything by like September. Everything was pretty much decided. But we didn't sign off until May of this year, which was pretty crazy. Like that's a long time to kind of be in limbo. And it wasn't for any real reason. Like it wasn't an issue. There was just so many different pieces kind of moving.
Right.
Really cool. So when did we sign to close? We signed on May 1st, which is St. George's Feast. And if anybody knows me, I carry this chain everywhere I go with St. George on it, who kind of protects me and guides me through. So we signed the paperwork on the day of his feast, which was for me just another sign like, yeah, this is what's supposed to happen. Like this feels right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have now had a successful exit. Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
It's massive. Yeah.
And by the way, that's mainly due to weed. Like that's from cannabis. Like the main reason Hub wanted me on their team was because I specialized in cannabis, and they wanted somebody to really go out there and push and that can represent them in that space. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was doing all of these events and marketing and stuff on my own.
Right.
So to have somebody behind me to push me and encourage me to do that, that's what I needed, right? So
now you got a marketing budget.
Exactly.
You don't have to pay for that bus and change this yourself. Yeah.
There you go. So it just made so much sense to join them. And we just joined them on September 1st is when we actually closed. So it's been, a month and a little bit. And it's been a crazy ride, man. My head's still spinning a little bit, because the last year has been kind of, I wouldn't say hectic, but there was question marks and there was things that you're trying to do while you're maintaining your current business. And so it wasn't easy. It's still not easy. Like we're still going through some challenges, as we transition.
For sure.
But I know at the end of this, I'm gonna, be where I want to be, and more than that, I'm gonna have the opportunities that I did this for in order to get those chances.
I mean, like if this isn't a perfect example of like never giving up and like persevering through Like, how many times in your story did you tell us that somebody said no to you, or that you thought you were the hardest, best qualified person for a job and it didn't happen? And like, you come this roundabout way and you get the job that you want. You got paid an exit bonus to start a job that you wanted in the first place. And now you have financial freedom and you're well respected, and just bravo, man. Like it's amazing. And
I appreciate it. And yeah,
happy for you.
No, thanks, Basem. I really appreciate it, man. Yeah, I think the big thing for me is school out 11 or 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I still had 7 years left. Like, I wasn't done finishing the plan, but before realizing it, man, like, a lot of my friends have told me, like, bro, you've been at this a long time, right? Like, before realizing it, I've been at this one goal a really long time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've broken down into little steps or phases, but it's been the same goal for the last 11, 12 years, right?
Okay, so when I'll speak from my experience for a second. When I sold TerraSend, or I exited TerraSend, huge high, like it was like an amazing experience. It was like you built a baby, and then you like, it grows past what you can do for it or whatever it is, and then I sell it, and for the first little while I was on cloud 9, and then came the like, what's next depression, right? Like you're like, now what, right? It's fortunately, it doesn't seem like you have that, because you've kind of like you baked in your next move into your last move, which is genius. But what's the end game?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a form of that, right? Basem, like, because I'm still in the business and still managing my business, it's not, where I'm picking my nose, I guess, and doing nothing. Like, I still have to be there every day and manage the business. But there is a sense of that, like, okay, now what, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've done that. I've been working for that for 12 years. Like, now what's your next goal? So yeah, I think for me, for the next 12 months at least, to be at Hub is really just to get comfortable, and then really understand how they do things. But beyond that, yeah, my goal with Hub is to work so hard that they offer me a job. Like, just grind and grind,
right,
until they come and say, we want you to do this. We want to pay you to do this.
Right.
And I think if I do that, I'll be just fine, right? Like, the other cool thing, and we're here talking about entrepreneurship, is now with, that exit money that you call it, now I could start looking into other things and start exploring and really turn on that kind of entrepreneurial spirit,
right,
away from insurance, right? Like, I can really start to play. And I think, somebody else that I really have to shout out, that showed me kind of those ropes is Peter Awad. I know, you know him very well.
He's got to come on this show.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to get him on here, I think. But Peter's a really quiet guy, I guess, behind the scenes. But Peter's the type of guy, man, that he showed me a whole other world. And like, not in a way that's like, okay, well, give me your money, I'll invest it. Like, no, it was, hey, you can do this. You're capable of this. Do you know this is an option? Certain things. And like, I just saw Peter a few weeks ago at a wedding, and he literally said, like, man, I was thanking him. Yeah. And he said, I'm glad that God used me to do that. Yeah. Like, that's the kind of guy he is.
He's a good dude.
Right? Like, he's genuinely a guy that wants to see the people around him succeed. And that's huge. To have people like that around is huge. So yeah, so hooking up with somebody like that, you get different calls and like, hey, what do you think about this? Do you want it on this? Right? And things that he would never have the opportunity to do. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to be able to kind of play around a little bit, take more risks, take more chances. Cause that's, I always said that when you have that feeling of like, oh, I don't know if I should do that, or that scared, it's like, that's the one that you probably should do, right?
That's where the growth is.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where the reward is waiting, right? Like,
okay, so I want to try to wrap this up with some words of wisdom. Most of the people that watch these episodes are entrepreneurs or have entrepreneurial aspirations. Something that you wish you knew when you started that you know now that you want to tell the world.
Man, that's a good one. Yeah, I'll probably take a second to just kind of think about that. But I think the biggest piece for me, at least, was, just wake up and grind. Like, and I know that sounds really simple, right? Like, yeah, okay, wake up and work. It's like, but no, there's a difference between, having a goal and grinding and just working or, chasing money. And I think for me, that exit strategy, I never had a dollar amount, even the 10 years. I never had a number at the end of the 10 years.
Right.
So it's not like I fell short or I just woke up and grinded every day. And I think if you do that, if you find something obviously that you enjoy, and that helped me because, I always tell people I've been studying cannabis for 25 years. So having something like that I actually cared about and enjoyed, I was way more willing to get up for. Like I was at these conferences downtown at 7 a.m. and I was there all day, just like handing out cards to random people who I knew would never call me.
Right.
But I was giving them my card. I was speaking to them. And literally like 2 or 3 years later, I would get a call from like Washington. Some dude in Washington was like, hey, we need insurance for a company coming into Canada. So I think grinding obviously with a purpose, with a goal, but at the end of the day, if you get up and focus on what you do and believe it, like you have to believe that it's gonna happen, because there's days that are gonna tell you it's not gonna happen. Totally. And those are the days when you're like, well, is this really gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
So just having that belief in yourself, like your abilities. Again, I put this goal out 10 or 12 years ago. So imagine how much I've grown and learned in those 10 or 12 years. I would never be able to do that 8 years ago. You know what I mean? Like right. You have to go through all of those steps. So yeah, I think grinding, obviously, being patient, like timing is everything, man. And again, we said this earlier, but you don't decide your timing. You can decide how hard you work, right? You can decide what time you wake up. So yeah, focus on those things that you can really control and go get it, man. Like seeing different people, especially in our community, right? Seeing what you've done and what you're doing, not what you've done, what you're doing today, it really should be, assigned to everybody. That if you get up and grind and you do the right things and you respect the right people, you can accomplish many different things, right?
Respect everybody.
Yeah.
You never know. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, listen, man, thank you so much for being here with me today and for sharing your story. Like it's such invaluable information, and like putting this on record, it helps us and it helps our community at large. So I really appreciate your time, and I wish you obviously nothing but success. You're my brother, and like, I can't wait to see what you do over the next 10 years.
Habibi, man. No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And yeah, looking forward to our kids growing up together over the next many years.
They already are, yeah.
That's another episode of the Basem Hanna Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. To all the entrepreneurs out there, we're with you and we're here to help. If you like the episode, please like and subscribe. That's great for us. It helps us. For more information and for more episodes of the podcast, you can check out basemhanna.com. That's BASEMHANNA.com. And we're on all the social platforms as well.